Alright, hello there, thrill seekers. It's me, and Ziggy is back there getting some sun. And that was a little piece of a song called Yozora no Hoshi, which means something like stars of the nighttime sky. And sometimes I think it's called Starry Night. And a lot of times it's misattributed to the Ventures, but it's actually by Kayama Yuzo, or Yuzo Kayama, if you want to put his family name last, in the usual style we do in English. They covered it. The Ventures covered it. So, today I would like to talk about the response, one of the responses I got to my previous video, which, as you may remember, was about paranormal powers and the Zen attitude towards paranormal powers, and I quoted Dogen, but I don't think that this is unique to Dogen. I think if you ask some people in the Rinzai version of Zen, they would probably have pretty much the same attitude. Rinzai is the other version of Zen. There's Soto in Rinzai, and Dogen taught Soto-style Zen. Go look it up in Wikipedia if you want to know. So anyway, one of the responses I got to that video... Are you okay? Ziggy's hacking. I guess he's okay. Anyway, one of the responses I got to that video said, "Oh, Brad Warner is cherry picking because he ignores what Dogen says in Sanji Go about paranormal powers." And I'm like, I don't think Dogen says anything about paranormal powers in Sanji Go, which my teacher usually pronounced Sanji No Go. So let's talk about Sanji No Go, or Sanji Go. It appears in the 4th volume of the Nishijima Cross version of Shobo Genzo. It appears in probably multiple versions of Shobo Genzo. I mean, I know it appears in every complete version, and it probably appears in some of the little collections. Sanji No Go. Now, if you look at that, the person who was criticizing me pronounced it Sanji Go. If you actually look at it, if you know Japanese, the characters literally do say Sanji Go, but a Japanese person would normally kind of stick the no in there, because no is kind of means like of, or like apostrophe s in English. It functions kind of the same way. So Sanji means 3 times, and Go means karma. So usually the title of the chapter is given in English as Karma in 3 times, or Karma in the 3 times. And I first referenced it, just to show that I'm not cherry picking and I'm not ignoring it. I first referenced it back in 2007 in my book Sit Down and Shut Up, and the reference occurs on page 122 in a chapter called Evil is Stupid, and there I make a really dumb joke that says Karma in the 3 times, chapter 84 of Shobo Genzo, titled Sanji No Go, which has nothing to do with anybody named Sanji refusing to go anywhere. Ha ha ha. You know, Sanji No Go. Something stupid like that. So let's talk about Sanji No Go. Sanji No Go basically... Whoa, okay, I just dropped a bunch of things, but let's not worry about that. Let me just read you Nishijima... Sorry for bumping the table. Let me read you Nishijima Roshi's introduction. He says, San means 3, Ji means time, and Go means conduct. In this chapter, Sanji means 3 kinds of time lag, and Go refers to both conduct and effect. So cause and effect, karma. Karma vipaka, if you want to be really, literal about it. Belief in cause and effect forms a central part of Buddhist philosophy. This is the reason why Master Dogen wrote the chapter of Shobo Genzo titled Sanji Inga, or Deep Belief in Cause and Effect. He insisted that all things and phenomena in the universe are governed by the law of cause and effect perfectly and without exception. In accord with this theory, we should deny the existence of indeterminate events. So we should deny the existence of the supernatural, for example, something that intercedes, something that breaks the law of cause and effect. So this is, I would say, explicitly another chapter in which Dogen denies the supernatural. But we're going to get into why maybe my guy thinks that it refers to the supernatural. La-di-da, we should deny them both. But in our daily life, it often seems that such accidents happen, things that happen without any cause. So if Buddhism insists that the law of cause and effect is all-encompassing, it is necessary to explain the apparent existence of accidents. Nishijima Roshi used this word accident in a funny way. I remember once somebody got really upset because right after the September 11th thing happened, 2001, when I was over in Japan studying with him, he referred to that event as an accident. And then somebody got really upset, that was not an accident. And he just meant it was kind of an incident. But sometimes, in this case, he's not using it that way. He's just kind of using it as something that happens kind of out of the blue with no cause. Buddhism explains these apparent accidents with the theory that there are three kinds of time lag between our conduct and the effect of our conduct. The effect of an action sometimes manifests itself at once, sometimes after a short time, and sometimes after a very long time. In the second and third cases, it is often difficult to believe that the whole world is governed completely by the law of cause and effect. But if we affirm that there are three kinds of time lag between conduct and its effect, we can affirm the validity of the law of cause and effect in all cases without exception. So, Nishijima Roshi is kind of deliberately avoiding something which Dogen does, in which he talks about it in terms of lifetimes. And this may be the reason why that guy commented and said it's belief in the supernatural, because Dogen here literally refers to things that happen. You do something and the cause, the effect comes right after the cause. Sometimes it happens in the next lifetime. Sometimes it happens several lifetimes later. That's what he says. Nishijima Roshi, when he would explain that, would say you don't have to worry about that stuff about past lives and future lives. Just understand that the effect doesn't immediately follow the cause. Sometimes it shows up much later, and it can happen much later in this lifetime. In fact, he would say that it happens in this lifetime, but it might, if you want to get into the whole past lives things, future lives things, reincarnation thing, you might say that the effect becomes more apparent in a future lifetime. Yeah, but it does appear in this life too. Okay, so the chapter starts off with a guy who basically asks a Buddhist master, my family has been pretty good, yet we seem to always meet with misfortune. These guys down the street are, a-holes, and they have a good life. What gives? And the Buddhist master basically explains this idea of what I just said, that sometimes the effect of something doesn't appear in this lifetime, it appears in the next lifetime. And Dogen kind of makes a big deal of this point for a few paragraphs, but I'm going to skip over that, assuming you got it. And then he tells this kind of funny story. Again, maybe this is why my commenter thinks it's supernatural, because maybe this story is a little bit supernatural. Let's read it. Once there was a woodcutter who went into the mountains and lost his way in the snow. The time was approaching dusk, the snow was deep, and the cold was freezing. He would be dead before long. Then he advanced into a dense wood, whereupon he saw a bear, whose body was colored deep blue and whose eyes were like two torches. The man was terrified. Seeing the woodcutter's distress and fear, the bear, soothed him and said, so the bear talks. It's like there's an Elvis video in which he's referring to the band The Byrds, but he calls them the Beards. Anyway, maybe I'm influenced by that. Anyway. So, the bear says, "Now you must not be afraid. A father and mother are sometimes treacherous to a child, but I now am completely without ill will towards you." And he explains that he is actually a bodhisattva who has been kind of reincarnated as a bear, and he's going to help this guy out. So he basically brings this guy food and hugs him and warms him with his body, just like Ziggy does to me on cold nights, which is very nice. And then after like a week of this, the woodcutter leaves, and he's going down the mountain, and he meets these guys, and these guys say, "Have you seen any game around here?" Which reminds me of an old joke, which I'm not going to tell, but my dad used to tell me this joke about a guy who meets a naked woman in the woods and says, "Are you game?" And she says, "Yeah." So he shot her. That's the joke I told you. Anyway, so these dudes say, "Is there any game around here?" And the woodcutter goes, "Hey, if you'll share your spoils with me, if you'll divide it into thirds, because there's two of them, then I'll tell you where you can find a bear." So the guys go out and they find the bear that saved this dude's life, and they shoot him and they kill him, and they're splitting up the meat. But as soon as the woodcutter grabs the meat, his arms fall off. And this is an example, Dogen says, of karma being manifest right away. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah, there's I always take these sort of supernatural type stories with a grain of salt. There's another one that twists people up. That's a story I really like, which is Hyakujo's fox, and it concerns a guy who was reincarnated for 500 lifetimes as a wild fox, and he has a conversation with this guy, and sometimes people point that one out, and this one, as my commenter did, as an example of Dogen's belief in the supernatural. I don't, I take these stories as kind of teaching stories. I don't know if we are meant to take them literally, but I don't think the message here, and I'm sure, I'm not even going to say I don't think, I am sure the message here is not, hey kids, sometimes a bodhisattva gets reincarnated as a bear and can talk. That's not if you're taking that as the message, you're completely missing the point. The point is about the karma being manifest immediately, and he uses this story as an example of that, but you don't have to believe it literally. You can look at your own life and see that sometimes when you do something nasty, you get the retribution right away. I've noticed this in my own life, and I no longer feel comfortable denying it like I used to. I think that's pretty obvious that things sometimes come up right away. The next story he tells is once upon a time, King Kaniska of the country of Gandhara retained an androgyne. I guess that's somebody who's not quite a man and not quite a woman. I'm not going to go into anything about that right now, but it's part of the story. Anyway, on a temporary excursion beyond the city walls, he saw a herd of bulls. There were 500, and he says, what's going on with the bulls? They say the bulls are going to go be castrated, and the androgyne goes and saves the bulls by buying them all and saves them from castration. And then at once he is caused to recover a male body. So this is, again, an episode in which the karma manifests right away. And again, you don't have to believe, like I say, if you take that story as being, sometimes an androgyne can suddenly become a man. I mean, I don't know if I was going to say I don't know if there really are real androgynes, but I'm not going to even get into that. But, the magic of the body changing. If you take that as the example, I don't know, you got something going on. Anyhow, he then tells a story about karma that receives retribution in the next life. And he says that there are 5 actions leading to incessant hell. 1 is to kill one's father, 2 is to kill one's mother, 3 is to kill an arhat, a Buddhist, who's achieved enlightenment or some level of enlightenment. 4, to cause the Buddha's body to bleed. 5, to disrupt the Sangha. And he tells the story of Devadatta, which is one of these famous Buddhist stories where Devadatta is kind of the Judas of Buddhism, and he tries to kill the Buddha by, I think, rolling a boulder and making the boulder kill him, like on a cartoon, like on a Roadrunner cartoon. But as on a Roadrunner cartoon, the boulder doesn't kill the Buddha, but I think a piece of it breaks off and causes his toe to bleed. And so because of that, Devadatta is reborn in one of the hells. Let's see what it's called, Avicii Hell. And that's where he is forever, or, well, actually you don't stay in hell forever in the Buddhist way of thinking. You stay in hell until the karmic thingy just kind of dissipates, and then you can be reborn somewhere else. And then he tells a story of karma that receives retribution laterally, which means in a next life after the other life. Sorry about the plane noise. He tells this story. In the country of Shravasti, once upon a time, there lived 2 people who always practiced good and another who always committed bad. The one who practiced good deeds always practiced good deeds, and the one who did bad deeds was always doing bad deeds, etc., etc. When the one who practiced good deeds came to the end of his life through the influence of bad karma that receives retribution laterally, a middle existence, which Nishijima Roshi defines as a Brahmanic concept describing the soul in its middle existence between death and rebirth. Anyway, hell appears before him, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go to hell. And the guy thinks, throughout my life, I've always practiced good deeds and never committed bad. I should be reborn in heaven. What reason is there for this middle existence to appear before me? And eventually he thinks, I surely must have done bad karma, which is receiving retribution laterally, which means not in the life that he just lived and died from, but in a previous life. And he says, now this karma is appearing before me, and that's why I'm going to hell. Hell is appearing, and he's going to go there. And because he thinks this, he rejoices at the good stuff that he'd done in this life and figures it's going to mature eventually. And because of that, heaven appears before him and he doesn't end up going to hell, which is real nice. Then the guy who committed bad deeds all his life says, throughout my life I've constantly committed bad deeds and never practiced good. I deserve to be reborn in hell. What reason is this for this middle existence to appear before me? Because he sees a heaven existence. I'm sorry, I forgot to say that. He dies, the guy who does bad dies, and then he sees heaven appearing before him, and he says, why? And a false view arose. It said he negated good and bad and figured there was no karma, didn't have any effect, and it must have all been a lie. And because of that, the heaven immediately changes into hell, and he goes to hell for however long he needs to go to hell. So that's an example of the karma that's the retribution is received laterally. So yeah, again, I don't think these teaching stories have to be taken literally. I'm not going to say it again, but I think if you take that just as a literal thing, you're kind of missing the point. The idea is that sometimes a bad thing happens to you and you think, oh, I've been a pretty good guy, but then you think, oh yeah, maybe I did something bad before and I just don't remember it. I thought that when I got beat up on the streets of Akron, Ohio, I think around the year 1990. These guys came out from nowhere and started beating the crap out of me and my friend, and I thought, well, maybe this is karma for something I did that I don't remember. I didn't do what this guy does and say that karma must not be real. Anyway, it ends with a final story, which is Court Priest Kogetsu asks Master Chosa Keishin, a past master has said, after we have understood karmic hindrances are originally void, are originally empty, before we have understood we must atone for long-held debts. That's when you do this chant of atonement. All my ancient twisted karma, from beginningless greed, anger, and hatred, born of body, speech, and mind, I now fully avow. That's the sort of standard English version of it. That's what he means by atonement. La-di-da. How is it possible that such ones as the Venerable Simha and Second Patriarch atoned for debts completely? I guess he's saying because they were good guys who got killed. They're examples. Chosa says, virtuous one, you do not know the original void. The other says, what is the original void? Chosa says, karmic hindrances themselves. Kogetsu then says, what are karmic hindrances? Chosa says, the original void itself. Kogetsu is wordless. Now, Dogen criticizes this and says this is not the right answer. He says that the right answer, and he goes on for a little ways at the end of, he finally gets to his point. He says, the world-honored one, Buddha, said, even with the passing of hundreds of kalpas, that's long, long, long periods of time, the karma that we make does not perish. When causes and conditions come together, effects and results are naturally received. And there's some more to it, but that's pretty much it. This is one of Dogen's essays that remain kind of in the vaults after he died and was only kind of put together later, so it's not in the main Shobogenzo, which is most of the stuff in book 4 is like that if you're following along at home. but it's one of the ones that people consider to be canonical. A lot of people these days say Dogen wrote stuff like this because he thought that the people that were coming to him in the later part of his career were a little bit unsophisticated and needed to be taught this stuff about just you got to be a good person and don't do bad, and he thought people weren't getting that really basic message. I don't know. I don't think that negates the usefulness of chapters like this, but basically, I don't, to my mind, when I was talking about paranormal powers, which I was in the last video, I was talking about things like, I don't know, like the TM people, the Transcendental Meditation people say they can teach you how to levitate, that kind of stuff, or read other people's minds and stuff like that. To me, I don't consider the whole reincarnation thing to be an example of the paranormal, because of the way it's expressed in most of Hinduism and Buddhism as just a kind of a matter-of-fact thing. Usually when you see stuff, or when I've seen stuff written in Hindu and Buddhist literature about past lives and reincarnation, it's not like the stuff you see written in English these days, which is trying to convince you that this is an actual thing. They don't seem to be worried about that. They seem to just take it for granted as this is something that happens and everybody knows. We could talk for days about that, but that's why I kind of don't file it under supernatural, but some people might. The thing is, and this is the way Nishijima Roshi always talked about it, he said you don't have to accept this stuff about reincarnation. In fact, he didn't. He quite famously denied reincarnation, and I've done some videos about that, but I'm not going to do that here. But you don't have to believe it. It's just the idea that sometimes the effect of what you've done takes a bit of time to be realized, and it doesn't matter if you think of that as being something that happens in a next life, or if you think about it something that happens 2 years from when you actually do the thing that gets you the karma, or 10 years or whatever. So that's the way he put it, and that's the way I kind of was comfortable looking at it. I've done a bunch of videos about reincarnation, especially right after my dad died, so you can go, was that 2 years ago almost now? Anyway, so if you go back through my videos, you'll find dozens, I think. I don't know how many videos I've done on reincarnation, enough. And I did a chapter of Don't Be a Jerk called Did Dogen Believe in Reincarnation, and Does It Matter If He Did? In which I concluded, spoiler alert, I think he probably did believe in reincarnation, and to me that kind of matters, but it kind of doesn't. I tend to be agnostic about the subject, but I'm doing this video basically to let you know what it says in Sanji Go, or Sanji No Go. A Japanese person would, as I said, kind of naturally want to insert no in that phrase, but anyway, so I don't get accused of cherry picking. So this is what it says, and you can take it as you like. I tend to be agnostic about the reincarnation stuff, and I tend to look at the talking bear stuff and all the rest of it as being kind of a teaching story, but not necessarily a story you need to believe. Some people, apparently, like the guy who made the comment, want to take it literally. I just think you're missing the point if you're taking it literally. That's it. That's all I got for you. Go away now. That's what the guy says. What's his name? Oh, jeez. Anyway, that Scottish movie reviewer I sometimes watch. Critical Drinker, that's what he's called. Anyway, if you want to donate, if you want to make some good karma by donating, see, there's a little segue, but I don't mean it. But if you want to make some good karma by donating to me, you can go to the URL that you're about to see on the screen below, or that you're about to hear if you're listening to the audio-only version, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. That's where you'll find links to my PayPal and Patreon accounts. Those are my main and usually my only ways of making a living. And I appreciate your support, but as always, you don't got to support me if you don't want to. Okay, we will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Oh no, bro. Hey Ziggy, what do you think about that? Did you end up being reborn as a dog because of some karma? Is that why you were born as a dog? I mean, some people would say that. I don't know if I believe that. I think you got a pretty good doggy life, so I don't know if it was necessarily bad karma. All right, well, let's go inside. You're sniffing something. Let's go inside and edit the video.